Hilchos Mechusrei Kaparah Perek Chamishi, the laws of those lacking atonement, the sacrifices for those lacking atonement, chapter 5. We are continuing on the Mitzvah. Person who gets tzaras, he has a whole sacrificial procedure. They bring an animal, they put the blood on his big toe, and on his thumb, and on his right ear, and then they put some oil on the same 3 places. That was the general process we learned yesterday.
Same hand?
Yeah, same place, same exact place, same exact thumb, same exact big toe. Today we're going to learn the side laws, what happens if something goes wrong, and all of those things as they apply to the mitzvah. So first the Rambam begins with some definitions. Halacha Aleph, Eizehu Tnuch Eizen. In the Torah it says that you have to put the blood and the oil on the tnuch of the mitzvah's ear. What's the tnuch of the ear? Zeh Geder HaEmtzai. This is the middle.
I always thought that the tnuch is this.
Yes, I used to also think so. The lobe. The lobe, right?
Now it's that.
Yeah, because I think that in some places the word tnuch is used for lobe.
Yeah.
But in the Torah, it's Zeh Geder HaEmtzai. The middle ridge, which I explained yesterday is the antihelix. You can see it on the screen. This part over here. Right, with the inner frame of the ear. And when the Torah says the boihin yad and the boihin regel, that's the thumb and the big toe. That's obvious. Now says the Rambam, nosan al tzidei habehoinus. If you put it on the sides of the big toe and the thumb, what's the sides? So the way it's explained in the commentaries, this, I guess we'll call this the top, right? So if you have the thumb, it's kind of hard to turn around the thumb, but this is the boihin. The front, or the top of the thumb is the boihin. The sides would be literally the sides. Mm-hmm. This side or that side. If you can see it on the screen over here. Okay, this is the boihin. This is the actual place to put it, and the sides would be over here or over here. So the Rambam says the sides of the bohinas are kosher. That's kosher. Nasan al tzidei tzideihen, the sides of the sides, puzzle. That's disqualified. The commentaries explain sides of the sides is the underside. So this is the proper place. Sides would be off to the side. Sides of the side would be the back, essentially. Yeah, the other side. And that's not okay. Bein shenasan hashemen al dam ha'osham atzmai milamayla. The halacha is that it's good whether you put the oil exactly over the blood. Because first you would apply the blood to the ear and the thumb and the big toe, and then the oil. So whether you put the oil exactly on top of the blood, bein shenasan b'tzad hadam, whether you put it on the side of the blood, even if, for whatever reason, the blood got wiped off before you put the oil on the place, Yatsa, you fulfilled your obligation. Shenemar, because look at the verse, what does it say? Where do you put the oil? Al mikoim dam ha'asham, on the place of the blood of the asham. Meaning what? What's important? The place, not so much the blood. Now, by the way, I should point out, earlier, literally the verse before, here we saw this yesterday, it says al dam ha'asham. You're supposed to put it onto the blood. However, what the Rambam is saying, since in the next verse it also says mikoim, that means that there's room to say that it's the place that matters, not the blood that matters. Obviously, ideally, you want to put it on top of the blood, because Torah says in the last verse. But even if you didn't, it's fine. Listen to this. Ein loy boihin yad yamonis, oy boihin regel yamonis. If the mitzvah is crippled, for whatever reason, he doesn't have his right thumb, he doesn't have his right big toe, or he doesn't have his right ear, tragically, he can never become pure. Because the essential part of the purity is to have the blood and the oil applied to those places. If you don't have that limb, you can never get out. Halacha Beis, let's talk for a minute about the sacrifices. So we remember, and we'll go back to this soon also, the mitzvah has to bring 3 animals as his sacrifice if he's in the financial position to do so. One is a burnt offering, one is a sin offering, one is a guilt offering. If he's not wealthy enough to bring all 3, then he brings 2 birds instead of the burnt offering and the sin offering. But the asham, the guilt offering, still has to be an animal. So the Rambam says, let's talk about this asham for a second. Asham mitzayra sheshchatei shalei lishmai. You have the guilt offering of the mitzayra that was slaughtered with the wrong intention. That means the kohen slaughtered it, not thinking that it was a guilt offering. He thought it was a burnt offering or a sin offering. Or everything was okay with the sacrificial procedure, he just didn't finish it off and apply it to the mitzvah's limbs that he was supposed to. So the sacrifice is kosher. You can bring the meat onto the mizbeach. V'ton nesachim keniske Hashem mitzayra, with the libations, the flour, wine, and oil that accompany it, like any other guilt offering of a mitzayra, but it doesn't work for the guy. V'tzarich ha-mitzayra asham acher lehachshiroi. To kosherize the mitzayra, he will require another guilt offering, which you're going to slaughter again, and apply it in the right places at the right times. Halacha gimel hikdim chatose la'ashamai. If he prefaced the sin offering to the guilt offering. If you look in the verses, first thing the Torah describes, I don't have the whole thing over here, but first thing Torah describes is the guilt offering. You bring the guilt offering, then you apply the blood everywhere to the places, and then you bring the sin offering. What if you brought the sin offering first? Lo yiya acher memaris bedama. Sometimes when you bring a sacrifice too early, you just say, look, hold back, hold the blood in place, mix the blood, wait to bring the later offering first, and then sprinkle the blood of the earlier one. So here we don't say that. Since the sin offering was brought out of order, you let it stay overnight, and it simply has to be burnt. And later on, you bring another sin offering. Halacha dalid. After the asham was brought and the blood was applied, so we said there was also a little amount of oil that was applied also to the same places. It says that Rambam yesh la'adam lahavi ashamay hayom v'lugay la'achar asara yamim. A mitzayra technically could bring his guilt offering today, and the amount of oil, the log of oil, after 10 days. Because in the end of the day, you don't have to put the oil right on top of the blood, as long as it's in the same place. So even if you separated them, it's fine. Even if you want to change this oil that you put aside to a different guilt offering of a different mitzayra, mishana, you can change it, afal pisha kadosh b'kli, even though it's already been sanctified in a vessel. Because we learn from the verses that the loig doesn't have to be connected to this sacrifice. It should be, but if you separate it, it's also okay. Chasar haloig ad shelo yatzak. You're holding the loig, okay? The loig is about 12 ounces. That's not exactly accurate, but let's just say you have a cup of oil, yeah? This is the one you're going to be using for the applications. The way it usually worked was, the kohen would take the cup of oil, pour a little bit into his left hand, really into another kohen's left hand, but pouring it into somebody's left hand, and then he would take the oil and sprinkle it 7 times towards the Holy of Holies, and also apply it to the mitzayra. So what if some of the oil came out of this utensil before he had a chance to even pour it into the hand? Yimalenu. So you simply refill it and go through the motions. Chasar me achar sheyatzak yavi achar batchila. But if you poured it a little bit into your hand, and now some of it fell away, you got to bring a new one. Because the loig, in many cases, the actual cup holding the original oil, also has to be intact while you do the oil procedure. Halacha hey, yatzak min Hashem min lekapai v'hischil lahazois. What if you poured it into your hand and you already began to do the sprinklings towards the temple? And now v'nishbach haloig. Now the original utensil with the oil spills. So now we have to see where you're up to. Im ad shaloi gamar matan sheva nishbach haloig. If the loig spilt before you had a chance to complete the 7 sprinklings towards the Holy of Holies, yavi acher v'yaschil b'matan sheva. Bring another one and begin again with the 7 sprinklings. Gamar matan sheva v'nishbach haloig. But if you had already finished 7 sprinklings and now it spilled, yavi acher, bring a new one, v'yaschil lechatchila b'bahoinus. But you already took care of the 7 sprinklings, so you can begin initially with the applications to the mitzayra's body, to the ear, the thumb, and the big toe. Hischil b'bahoinus. Going step by step. If you already began the applications to the ears, thumb, and big toe, and then the loig holding the oil spilled before you had a chance to finish, yavi acher, same thing. Bring another one. Start again from this point, the applications point. Gomar habahoinus. If you already finished the applications, and then the loig holding the oil spilled, before you had a chance to put the rest of the oil on the head of the person. We saw yesterday, right? Whatever oil is left in the hands of the kohen, he rubs it into the head of the mitzayra. At this point, there's no need to bring a new loig with oil. Because placing the oil on the head is not essential. And I have to clarify here because the commentary said, what do you mean it's not essential? Yesterday the Rambam said, if you don't apply it to the head, loy kiper, you don't achieve atonement. So the Keren Oida, one of the commentaries, explains what the Rambam is saying is, of course putting it to the head is essential. But all you have to put on the head is the oil left in your hand. You don't require any new oil to be in the cup for that to happen. Shenemar, because the verse says, V'hanoisar b'shemen u'miyeser hashemen. Where is this? This is 2 verses here. Umi yeser hashemen, from the leftover oil, you put it onto the ear, thumb, and big toe. The hanoisar b'shemen, and then whatever's left over in the oil, you put onto the head. In other words, all we care about for these applications is the leftover oil. So who cares that the oil in this cup spilled away? You have oil left in your hand, apply it to the mitzayra's head. Halacha vav, hikdim matan shemen lematan dam. Again, another mistake. You put the oil before the blood. Right, in the Torah, what does it say? First the blood, onto the ear, thumb, and big toe, and then the oil. You put the oil first. Yemale haloig shemen. So here, you have to refill the cup with the oil. V'yachzer v'yiten hashemen achar adam. And you got to do it in the right order. Do the blood now, and then do the oil after the blood. Hikdim matan shemen al habehoines lamatan sheva. What if you went in the right order? You did first the blood, and then the oil. But in the oil itself, you changed the order. Instead of sprinkling 7 times towards olive oil and then applying it to the mitzayra, first you applied it to the mitzayra, and then you sprinkled 7 times. So just go back. Yemale haloig, refill the oil. V'yachzer v'yiten al habehoines achar matan sheva. And then you go back and you put it onto the thumb and big toe and the ear after the 7 sprinklings. And why is this important? Shenemar, because the Torah says in the beginning of the passage, Zois tia teiras ha-mitzayra. This should be the law of the mitzayra. Whenever Torah uses that word, this should be the law. That means shatia kol teirase ala seder. The whole law has to be done in order. So every step has to go first the blood, then the oil 7 times, then the oil on the mitzayra. If any step is mixed up, it has to be redone. Halacha zayin nasan sheva hamatanis shalei lishman. If you sprinkle the 7 sprinklings with the wrong intention, meaning for a different mitzayra, not for this mitzayra, loy hurtza, it has not achieved atonement. V'huchshar ha-mitzayra, but the mitzayra does become kosher. So what does that mean? So the commentaries say, interesting, it actually doesn't mean what it sounds like. You will have to bring a new amount of oil and sprinkle it again properly. The Rambam is just saying that the oil itself is kosher. We said yesterday that whatever's left over from the oil, the Kohanim get to eat. So in this case, even though you sprinkled part of it, shalei lishman, the Kohanim can still take the rest of the oil and eat it. But for the mitzayra itself, he will have to do it again. He cannot yet eat sacrificial meat till they bring more oil and sprinkle it again. Halacha ches, mitzayra shenisnaga achar shehevi hashamay. Again, just to remind ourselves, there's 3 sacrifices. But what if the mitzayra just brought the guilt offering, and he becomes a mitzayra again? Just a new lesion sprouts up on his skin. Tzarich karban acher letzara'as shniya. So the asham is the cutoff line. At that point, he becomes purified, and if there's a new lesion, he has to bring a new sacrifice when he gets healed from the new tzaras. V'cheinin hevi ashamay v'nisnaga. Same thing, if he then brought the second one and got a lesion again. Tzarich karban al kol achas v'achas. The asham splits it up, so you have to bring a new sacrifice for each one. Aval im nisnaga v'nirpa v'hevi tziparav. But let's say you had a lesion. You just got healed and you brought the birds, not the animal, not the asham. The chazar v'nisnaga v'nisrape v'hevi tziparav. And then you got another lesion again. You became purified. And you brought the birds. By the way, I should edit what I just said. It's not the birds of the sacrifice. It's the birds that you bring in the initial purification process, the 2 birds with the water that I mentioned in short yesterday. Point is, you didn't bring the asham yet. Karban echad lekulan. Now you can get rid of all the impurities with 1 karban. As long as you didn't bring any asham, there's no cutoff, everything goes under the same umbrella, and this one sacrifice will take care of everything. Halacha tes, mitzayra shehevi karban ani v'heshir. So here we have it. This is the mitzayra ashir. 3 sacrifices, 3 animals for a rich person, an animal and 2 birds for a poor one. So what happens if a mitzayra was poor? He brings the poor karban, v'heshir, and then he finds out in the middle of the sacrificial offering, hey, you just won the lottery. You became a millionaire. Oy ashir v'heni. Or he was rich, he originally brought the 3 animals, and then he became poor, kaidim she'akriv karbanaisav, before he brings the sacrifices. So here's how it goes. Hakoil hoilech achara asham. Same cutoff line. It all goes after the status when the asham was brought. Im haya b'shas shchitasa asham. Ashir, if he was rich when the asham was slaughtered, yishalim karban ashir. He must complete the rich offering, 2 more animals. V'im haya ani, if he was poor, yishalim karban ani. He must pay up only with the poor animals, the birds in this case. Halacha yod shnei mitzayrayim shenis arba karban nisayim. You have 2 mitzayras, their sacrifices got mixed up. One of the sin offerings was offered and sprinkled the blood. And then one of them died. This living Mitzayra seems to be in trouble. What should he do? He cannot offer another animal sin offering. Maybe the one that was already sprinkled the blood was actually his. We said numerous times, you cannot bring an animal sin offering out of doubt. He can't say, no, I'll bring a bird. Because a bird you could bring out of doubt. I'll bring a bird. But he was rich. A rich person who can afford an animal, who brings sacrifice of a poor person, doesn't fulfill his obligation. So what do? We find this solution in halacha a number of times, but you have to trust the guy that you're doing this with. You have to write all your possessions to somebody else. You literally gift it to somebody else, which makes you into a poor person. And now that you're poor, you don't have any money, you bring the bird sin offering out of doubt, and it will not be eaten, as we explained, which now will allow you to eat sacrificial meat. Now you have to hope that the guy's going to give you back all your possessions afterwards. But for the meantime, you can become a poor person and bring a sacrifice of a poor person just to be able to solve this issue of not being able to eat sacrificial meat. Halacha Yud Aleph, the final halacha of this chapter and of all the section of laws, is a wonderful concept. Ashir Sha'amar. A person is rich, and he says, Karbanei shal mitzayra zeh alai. He sees a friend who had lesions, has to bring sacrifices, and he says, it's on me. Yeah, let's put it on the picture here. Rich dude says about the poor guy, his karbanos are on me. But the person was poor. He needs to bring, on the other guy's behalf, a rich man's sacrifice. Because the hand of the person who's making the vow could afford it. On the other hand, if a poor person says, I want to bring the sacrifices for this rich man, so you just told me in the last case you go by the person who made the promise. And if he's rich, it's to bring rich. But here, no. If the Mitzayra was rich, the poor person has to bring rich person sacrifices. Because the person making the promise is now obligated to bring the sacrifices of a rich man.
But he's ani.
So what's the obvious question? He's a poor man. What do you mean the person who made the promise is obligated in rich man's carbon? He's poor. It goes even more than that, I'll tell you. In the last book, the Rambam actually also mentions this law, and he literally contradicts himself. He says over there, if a poor person says, I want to bring a rich person's mitzayra sacrifices, he brings a carbon ani. Poor person sacrifices. Literally a direct contradiction. How do you explain it? So the Rebbe says, here we see, you have to look at the name of the laws. In the last book, it was in the laws called Maseh HaKarbanos, sacrificial procedures. In this book, it's called Mechusrei Kaparah, lacking atonement. There's two ways you can look at when a person steps in to bring somebody else's offerings. There's two ways you can look at it. You could look at it as simply fulfilling your verbal obligations. You made a neder. Your neder obligates you in this, even though you're not obligated in it. The other way to look at it is a little bit of a deeper way. All Jews are connected. Kol Yisrael arevim zeh b'zeh. All Jews are guarantors for one another. Torah allows you not just to make a verbal obligation upon yourself and thereby obligate yourself to bring sacrifices, but actually to step into somebody else's shoes. I can become you. Because we're responsible for one another, if I so choose, I can extend this guarantorship to literally become like you. So when you're talking about sacrificial procedures, just the basic law of sacrifices, so there, you're not fully stepping in to achieve atonement. You're just making a little obligation. So if you're poor, and you say about a rich man, I want to bring his sacrifices, but you can't afford it. So your verbal obligation only obligates you in a poor person's sacrifice. Here the Rambam says even further, Mechusrei Kaparah. This person lacks atonement. What do you want to do? You're trying to achieve atonement for him. That means you're trying to step into his place and become like the person who needs atonement. In that case, so Torah says, Hashem says, if you're looking to become like another fellow Jew, I'm going to give you their status. They're rich, you're going to become like a rich person. On an Avos Yisrael level, it's a huge concept. When you choose to help somebody else, even if your capabilities, your wallet says you can't help, but Hashem says you're going out of your boundaries to help that person, I'm going to give you his capabilities. I'm going to give you rich capabilities. That's what it means, Mevi al Yodai. He brings for him, meaning because he's trying to become him. So if you're a rich person, you're bringing for a poor person, You got to step in as yourself because you're the one trying to step in. But even if you're a poor person trying to bring for a rich person, you get invested with the capabilities of a rich person. A wonderful thing. Blessed Hashem grants his assistance. Mazel tov for concluding the laws of Mechusrei Kaparah.